AFR app is available not only for Apple and Android users, but also on Amazon Alexa and Roku.
Download the AFR app today at afr.net. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Today's Wednesday, January the 10th, 2024. We thank you for listening to AFR Live Radio show here, folks, for the next hour and 24 minutes. Joining me, I'm remote today, and I'm on the moon, and we're trying this for the first time. Joining me in studio is Ed Vitagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Fred Jackson.
Good morning, Tim.
And Wesley Wildman. Good morning, Wesley.
Coming in on two wheels, and good morning.
Coming in on two wheels. That's better than no wheels at all.
That's right. Yes, sir. I had to make sure I got my hot cup of AFA coffee before I entered into the studio.
We have some good coffee. A lot of people don't know about it. Hey, Wesley, why don't you tell them what's behind curtain number 2?
That's exactly right. Well, my favorite is Blessing. It's got pecan. It's got a little. I'm not crazy about flavored coffee. However, a little bit's okay. And the pecan flavored coffee that we have in our resource center is extremely good. Of course, well, I'll say, of course, some people may not know, but I like my coffee just straight black, and so that's really good. We have a morning blend that's really good as well. And beyond that, we have other flavors, but
yes, we do.
Those are my two favorite flavors, and you can.
Ed, if people want to order our coffee here at American Family Radio, how can they do that, Ed?
Wesley, I think that's what your dad was after.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry.
No, listen, it was funny.
It was also an ad.
The longer you went on, the longer I thought the moment when Tim tells Wesley, Wesley, nobody cares what your personal favorites are. You can go to resources.afa.net, and pick yourself up some coffee. And like Wesley was saying, we do have several different flavors. And
it is good coffee, I'm telling you. We've had it for 10 years now or so.
Well, if you don't tell them it's good.
We've offered coffee.
Right. Yeah. It's a personal testimony.
Good gracious, guys,
yes,
already.
Wesley, you have no idea the kind of abuse you're going to endure.
It's coming. Hey,
okay, so if I want to go order that coffee, you go to where, Ed?
Resources.afa.net. Resources.afa.net. Yeah. That's our resource center. You can buy books there and DVDs, all kinds of things. But we do.
And listen, we grow that coffee right behind our building here. so I mean, we personally make sure that the coffee is top notch.
And right? like a good American company or organization, we have poor Chinese people that we ship over to. No, we don't. No sweatshops, nothing like that.
No, we don't. All right, so Fred, good morning to you, brother Fred. Are you still pushing that Canadian cold air down on us Americans here?
Actually, it's a balmy 40-something out there this morning. It's quite nice.
In Tupelo.
In Tupelo, yeah. But we're going to have a couple of cold days next Monday and Tuesday. The high is going to be 25.
In fact, Fred, excuse me, but it's going to be Tupelo in Tupelo.
Yeah. That's what, it's going to be way below in Tupelo.
See what it did there?
I like it.
And just to make sure that we get good Mississippi weather, tomorrow will be 62 and sunny.
Yeah, I know.
It's supposed to be 62
and sunny tomorrow, Thursday. Uh-huh. And then, of course, as Fred was mentioning.
That's when your plants die. Yes. No, I learned this last year. A lot of people listening to me right now across the country experience this. We had warm. It was January. We had warm weather.
That's right.
I'm talking in the deep south, it was 70.
Yep. Right.
And then it dropped within like 24 hours to like 13.
Yep.
Or something like that. And I learned through a horticulturist that the sap doesn't have time to go down to the bottom. So it
to preserve
kill your plants.
Yeah, plants that are not supposed to die, that when you read on the little little sign that says, can handle hardy, can handle all conditions. This is the plant you want to plant for south winter months. Those plants died.
Yeah. Because I didn't realize, though, that the reason was because if it's more gradual, the sap goes down to the bottom
there you go.
to preserve it. I didn't know that until just this moment.
That was a trivia. We left too early, Dad.
Would have
That was
been.
supposed to be a trivia.
Would have been a good trivia question.
Yeah, that's what I learned last year. Whether it's true or not, I'll never know because I don't know. Somebody, a horticulturist could tell me something, look me straight in the eye, and lie to my face, and I'd never know. I'd accept every word they said.
There's all kinds of branches of science.
That's the science behind your dying plants and trees because of a drastic 24-hour change in weather. It is going to be. Seriously, it is it's a winter storm that. Fred, that's going to affect two-thirds of the country?
Yeah, some of it is already through the north. Now, I was looking at a forecast this morning. The snow predictions for the southeast here have been reduced somewhat, but it is going to be really cold. We're talking single-digit overnight, and below freezing has a high next Monday and Tuesday. So just beware. Get your pipes covered and your outside tap and all that good stuff.
Buy your milk and bread. That's what everyone does in the South.
Yes.
There you go.
It's going to be cold.
So there's a run on milk and bread, and usually eggs too.
Yes.
Because
you
got to have cold cereal.
You can't have French toast without eggs on your bread.
All right, what's happening in the real world out there, Fred?
Well, as we speak, there has been political drama on Capitol Hill this morning. The Republicans opened a hearing this morning on issuing a contempt charge against Hunter Biden. Now, that goes back to when Hunter Biden was supposed to show up at a hearing in December. He did not. Remember, he stood outside, held a little news conference saying, I'm not going to go behind closed doors. If you want a public hearing, I'll show up for that. So he defied that. So they were having a hearing this morning, unannounced. Hunter Biden shows up in the hearing room, and he allows his Democrat friends to go on and on about how unjust all of this is. And when the Democrat is through, and Congresswoman Green from Georgia was supposed to speak, not a friend of Hunter Biden, he gets up with his entourage and storms out of the hearing room, and all the little lapdog reporters go following after Hunter Biden out of the room. Hunter Biden had his own camera crew there this morning because he has a friend that is making a documentary of his life, so they wanted some good footage out of this hearing room this morning. That's why I call it theater, because this is what it's all about at this point. There is a potential serious side to this. I don't know if we'll ever see it, but you may remember when the January 6th committee was holding its hearings, it subpoenaed people like Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon did not show up under subpoena. He was prosecuted by the district attorney there in D.C. and found guilty. You may remember that. So the question is now, Hunter Biden steps out. He has no intention of showing up at a hearing. Is he? Because if he if he defies this, is the district attorney in D.C. going to haul him into court like they did with Steve Bannon and find him guilty? And what does that mean? The bets are that that'll never happen.
Yeah, that's a big no. I'm just going to tell you right now, the political, you said political theater, but the politics that have so infected the political process in America, especially in Washington, D.C. It's also in some of the bluer states, but the amount of politics that is infected the way things are done in Washington, D.C. really is peeling away people's confidence in our government. And to me, that is, again, I'm not going full conspiratorial because I don't think most of the people who are playing politics in Washington, D.C. are a part of this. But one of the ways you change a political system is to so destroy the confidence of people in that system that they're willing to take a chance on something else.
Well, listen, Hunter, now I guess that the investigative committee is trying to look into Hunter Biden's business dealings especially when his father was vice president, and that seems to be whether there was pay for play, is that what you call it?
Pay for play.
Yeah, whether they paid money to Hunter Biden to get access to his dad, I think that's pretty clear that happened. But whether or not, I guess they're going to try to get to the bottom of whether or not Joe Biden's personal bank account was affected and how that all worked. Joe Biden got money himself. That's what they're trying to during his days as vice president. Based on his son's business dealings. So Hunter Biden said, "Listen, I'll appear in a public hearing." Right? Isn't that what he agreed to?
And back in December, yes.
But I don't know what's the difference between that and a behind closed doors meeting. What's the difference?
If you believe Hunter Biden, he said he didn't want to go behind closed doors because he believed the Republicans would lie.
Well, why don't the Republicans let him come and speak openly?
They said he could do both.
Yes.
They said he could do both.
Yes.
Oh, okay. But does he have to go under oath if he's before the committee publicly?
Yes, under oath, but he can plead the fifth anytime he wants.
That's right.
As well as Lerner did.
Let him plead the fifth. I don't know. It just I'm sure there's some science behind this, political science behind this. But if the guy is offering to speak publicly, I guess they want to. Maybe he wants to get that done, and then not have to go behind closed doors because they're going to ask more detailed questions. I don't know. Like Ed said, it's political theater, a lot of it. But I think Hunter Biden's. If you want to just do the Hunter Biden political calculations, regardless of what's going on in Washington today or not, I think he's a net disadvantage to the President Biden altogether. And I don't know I don't know exactly, except for what I just mentioned, maybe some legal, maybe some established financial connection between. Hunter Biden and Joe Biden with checks and things like that. Brad, do you have any thoughts on this? Wes?
Well, I think ultimately what is going to happen with Hunter Biden, no matter what happens, he is supposedly
in big trouble.
He's supposedly being investigated by the Department of Justice and all those kind of. I think ultimately what's going to happen is that President Joe Biden is going to pardon Hunter Biden.
But he hadn't been convicted.
Well, I know. I think that's what they're just waiting for, is let this all run its course, and Joe Biden's just going to pardon him. There is no way that Hunter Biden is spending any time in prison if Joe Biden is president. That's my
he's
opinion.
in trouble. He's got 9 criminal charges, federal tax fraud, and he's also got that gun case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So he was a felon, and he purchased a gun, then he lied about it, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
I think it's entirely possible that Joe Biden, if he is on the way out as the nominee for Democrats, now it is 2024, so Hunter Biden has to be convicted in a hurry of some of these charges. Yeah. I don't know, but if Joe Biden is still president, even if he's on the way out and he says, for health reasons, I'm stepping down, he is going to pardon Hunter.
Can you preemptively pardon? I think you can.
Maybe. That's good.
Go ahead, Fred. I've had enough Hunter Biden today.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the other big story out of Washington, and that is the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. And we've been talking about this a little bit over the last few days, but we just found out yesterday, gentlemen, that the President of the United States just found out yesterday when we found out that Lloyd Austin has been diagnosed with prostate cancer. And just a quick review, he went in for a procedure, Lloyd Austin did, on December 22nd, I believe it was, to treat the prostate cancer. He developed complications from that procedure and had to be readmitted January 1, January 2 in there. Of course, the big story is that the White House didn't know for days that any of this was going on. But the revelation yesterday that his boss, President Joe Biden, didn't even know his defense secretary had prostate cancer, didn't know until yesterday. John Kirby is the White House spokesman. He was asked about all this yesterday, cut number 3.
Did President Biden learn of the defense secretary's cancer diagnosis?
He was not informed until this morning that the root cause of that hospitalization was prostate cancer.
Is that because the White House knew and didn't inform the president, or because Secretary Austin chose not to share that with the president?
Nobody at the White House knew that Secretary Austin had prostate cancer until this morning.
It's almost unbelievable. Lloyd Austin, as defense secretary, is 6th in line to the presidency. But for days, we're up to weeks now. Nobody knew this was going on. Apparently, the defense secretary didn't feel it necessary to tell people about this, including his boss. This is just really hard to believe. There are actually procedures and stipulations on the books that if a cabinet secretary is going to be unable to carry out their functions, they at least have to inform even the minority members in the House and the Senate. That's by law.
U.S. Code 3349.
So laws have been broken. And all the White House is saying yesterday, Kirby was saying yesterday, well, we're entering into a review. Dana Perino, who used to be a White House spokesman under George W. Bush, she says you don't need 2 or 3 weeks of review. This is a 30-second decision.
Right.
They are calling, she says, Lloyd Austin needs to resign.
He should be fired.
He should be fired, or he should honorably resign.
There you go, yeah.
Honorably resign. This is unheard of. This kind of, his 2 ICs, his second in commands, one of them had the flu, they're saying, unable. Another one was on vacation. The world is exploding.
That's right. Yeah.
Internationally. We've got our military people in the Middle East taking fire from enemies. We got our defense secretary in the hospital, and his boss, Joe Biden, doesn't even know.
Mm-hmm. Well, now, what we don't know, because what we just found, those clips you just played, that the president did not know of the diagnosis of Lloyd Austin and his cancer. But this all started last week.
Yes.
Do we, at this point, have any idea when the President Biden knew that Lloyd Austin was in the hospital?
Our understanding was the president went 3 or 4 days without knowing.
Yeah.
No, as you heard Kirby said, no one at the White House.
Right.
All right. So there was a blackout of this information at the White House.
What? Any idea why? What? I mean, the Secretary of Defense is not. You're not going to lose your job because you have cancer.
No.
I mean, what's the motivation for keeping this from the White House?
Well, this is why people are. Everybody hopes that he gets through his prostate cancer treatment well and has many years in front of him. He's 70 years old. But they are saying there's no way he can stay on the job because he was conscious coming out of the hospital on December 22nd after the procedure. He was certainly conscious in those days before he was readmitted to the hospital.
Yeah.
But not telling anybody. Some people are speculating he was embarrassed to tell people they had a prostate cancer. I don't know why, but that is what some people are speculating.
Yeah.
But a person in his position, somebody was saying, if a sergeant can't show up for work someday, he has to let his superior know.
Right.
Or he'll be in the brink.
And there's just no good excuse that someone could give him for not letting someone know that he was there. And just to add to the list of people that should have known, he should have told that didn't, as the Pentagon said that Austin's chief of staff, Kelly Magsman, was informed at the hospital visit on January the 2nd.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how many days? So basically what you're saying is Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of State, a cabinet-level position, 6th in line to be president, didn't let the President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief, know that he was going to be out of work, not at the office, incapacitated, in the hospital getting treatment for cancer. He just flat didn't let him know.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
While there were drone strikes going on in Baghdad.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens there. Hey, by the way, we'll see what the quote review review is what they say when a year from now they'll say, well, it's still under review. We're really.
This one, remember Jen Psaki used to famously say, "I'll circle back to you."
Circle back. Yeah.
When she couldn't answer a question as a White House spokesperson, she said, "I'll."
By the way, I was looking up that Hunter Biden situation because I remember it was a big story a few weeks ago. I got this off the United States Justice Department website. Okay.
All right.
And this is dated December 7th, 2023. It says a federal grand, and this is the Justice Department, Washington, D.C.'s website. A federal grand jury returned a 9-count indictment today charging Robert Hunter Biden with 3 felony tax offenses and 6 misdemeanor tax offenses. According to the indictment, Hunter Biden engaged in a 4-year scheme in which he chose not to pay at least $1.4 million in self-assessed federal taxes he owed for taxes 2016 through 2019. Now, so that doesn't get into the bribery maybe that took place and the money he made from his international business deals based on his dad being VP. But these are serious charges having to do with tax evasion. So that's what that's about. So I just wanted to be clear because I knew that he had been in, I knew that he's in deep right here with these IRS federal tax. Well, I don't know if it's IRS. I guess it's IRS, but it's Justice Department that brought the indictments against him, the United States Justice Department. Anyway, all right, you're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Fred, Wesley, and Ed. Go ahead, Fred. What do you got now?
Well, let's stay in Washington. The Republicans are moving forward with an impeachment hearing today against Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
What's his name, Fred?
Alejandro Mayorkas.
Hey,
Ed, would you like to say that?
No, listen, I want to compliment you. This was not easy for a Canadian but you have mastered his name. Well,
he's been in the news so much.
Yes.
They are out to prove, the Republicans, that he is guilty of dereliction of duty, and that has to do with the now millions of people who have entered this country illegally. And even Mayorkas, in a visit to the border earlier this week, said yes, 85% of those people, at least 85% of those people, hundreds of thousands of people coming across the border, were just doing the paperwork on them and releasing them out there. Elise Stefanik, Republican Congresswoman from New York, says Mayorkas needs to be impeached. Cut 4.
He is not taking care of our country, which is a constitutional requirement for a cabinet secretary. It also focuses on the fact that he is not executing the laws. We are seeing this administration leave a border wide open. And it's not just the policy, Brian. It's people have died as a result of the policy. If you look at the fentanyl overdoses, the leading cause of death for people aged 18 to 35, that's a direct result of Joe Biden's open border.
Yeah, and one of the fallouts we're learning today is in New York City, where 2,000 students have been told you have to stay home today because we're going to use your school as a shelter for the thousands of illegals that are in New York City. So this story...
Yeah, that's crazy what's happening in New York and these big cities. Of course, I have no sympathy for them at all.
No.
They invited this. Remember when New York was saying... they were a sanctuary city and we should be welcoming to all people who come here illegally or not, undocumented or not, and now they're having to deal with the real life consequences and ramifications of this, like Texas and Arizona and other states have been dealing with for years.
Yes.
And yeah, in New York, this is going to be a political storm because New York City, a liberal Democrat city, they're kicking their own kids out of school so they can use the school as shelters for the immigrants.
Yep.
So it's making a lot of the parents angry, as you can imagine. These parents are Democrats.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So anyway, we'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues. Governor Ron DeSantis had it was CNN last night, right, Fred?
No, it was Fox last night.
Fox, and then President Trump tonight. We'll be talking about that in a minute.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn Don Wildman.
Former Presidents Truman and Johnson died just a few days apart. Their deaths were well publicized. Their funerals were carried on national television. Hardly a person in the country were unaware of their deaths. The papers all carried front-page headlines about their deaths. A few days after their funerals, another person died. Like the former presidents, he had contributed much to the good of mankind. In fact, people throughout the world were indebted to his influence and actions. His name was E. Stanley Jones. He was a Christian missionary and preacher, and in a very real sense, a Christian statesman. Very few people were aware of his death. Little, if any, was said about it on national television. Some of the newspapers did mention it, but usually readers found it only on the back page and then only a paragraph. These deaths serve to remind us of the value society places on the life of individuals. No one would dare suggest that the death of a president shouldn't make national news. And according to our standards, it isn't much news when a Christian missionary dies, not even one the caliber of Dr. Jones. However, one wonders what type of reception was given in the next life to these great men. Without in any way trying to belittle the greatness of the presidency, I have a sneaking idea that Dr. Jones' arrival on the other side was publicized more widely than his death on this side. Here in this life, few of us will ever rise to the position of responsibility held by our well-known business and government leaders. Sometimes this causes us to feel that positions of lesser responsibility are of lesser value. And this is a great mistake. For our Creator never judges us on how high a position we hold, but only on how well we fulfill the responsibilities of the position we do hold. It is a matter of small importance with the one who made us if we hold positions of major importance as the world counts importance. But he's very much concerned with how well we perform in the position which he has for us to serve in. Some of the world's greatest people are hardly known outside the community in which they live, but they go at their responsibilities day after day in a sense of genuine faithfulness and fruitfulness. Often the only mention of their death is in the local obituary column. But this life isn't the only life, and in the other life you do not have to be famous or powerful to receive an honorable reception. When we Christians mention the word justice, we aren't speaking only of legal actions. We're speaking also of a reward rightly due. That's the reason that our values and the world's values are often in conflict. Dr. E. Stanley Jones is dead now. Few people in the world knew of his faithful and fruitful work, but God knew. And it is God who passes out the final commendations. While he was little known here, you can bet your bottom dollar that he was well known and received in the new land of forever.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
This only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. Psalm 27, verse 4.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. I'm Tim with Fred, Ed, and Wesley. We thank you for joining us here on AFR. Jenna Ellis joins us now. Jenna is host of Jenna Ellis in the Morning on American Family Radio, 7 to 8 o'clock Central Time each weekday. She's also a constitutional attorney. And good morning, Jenna.
Good morning. Great to be with you all.
So you're on the phone today? You're not?
I am on the phone. I'm on my way back from an appointment, so I am actually in a parking lot so that I can have full attention to our discussion today, but unfortunately I have to be on the phone today.
Yeah, that's okay. Usually you're joining us on the Comrex. For people who don't know, makes it sound like she's in the studio with us. Jenna also
Which
remote.
is so cool.
Remote, yeah. So, all right, Jenna, I wanted to ask you. Yesterday was a hearing was that the federal appellate court there in D.C., the D.C. district?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Was that Fred?
Yes.
Thank you, Fred.
Okay.
I was thinking it. Fred said it, and Jenna's just not joining.
but so I know, Jenna, you're restricted on what you can talk about relative to former President Trump's legal issues. I understand that. However, I think you can answer this question: What is presidential immunity we keep hearing all about? What's the history there, constitutionality of that, and what is that exactly?
Well, that's the question that the D.C. Circuit is really taking up, is what is presidential immunity and what does and should that cover under the Constitution? And the argument yesterday, of course, concerned the D.C. prosecution of Donald Trump by the Department of Justice, and his legal team is arguing that basically that any action that a president takes in the scope of his official duties should have immunity from criminal or civil prosecution. And, of course, the Department of Justice is arguing that if an action is otherwise criminal, even if a sitting president has an action that they take that they say is under color of their official duties, that can still hold criminal liability. So that was the question. And the argument kind of, in my opinion, went off the rails a little bit. And I discussed that at length this morning on Jenna Ellis in the Morning, so people can go to AFR.net, listen to the podcast version of that. But the basic breakdown of that is that the issue should have been framed as, does an action of a president while he is the president within the confines of his official duties give him immunity from later prosecution? And the answer to that should be yes, but for some reason it became a very convoluted argument because Trump's lawyers started out by stating all of the exceptions to the rule and then made this very interesting and novel constitutional argument that a president can only be criminally prosecuted if he has already been impeached and convicted. So due process requires an impeachment and conviction if there's a later criminal prosecution. I don't see that in the text of the Constitution. I don't think that argument is going to fly with the D.C. Circuit judges. It's a three-panel circuit panel of judges. Right. But what is most important for listeners to understand is that the answer to the scope of presidential immunity legally should not turn on what we personally think of Trump. I know there's listeners that support Trump, that hate Trump, and everything in between. This ultimately is about precedent and about the future of presidents and officers who are in the Oval Office. So this really has a large impact on America's future, what the answer to presidential immunity becomes.
Okay, so to give fairly both sides of the issue here, President Trump's team is saying he shouldn't be prosecuted because he was president of the United States, and you can't criminally prosecute somebody while they're president of the United States. The action, how to hold them accountable, if you will, is through the impeachment process. Is that what they're saying?
Yes, and that you can. There is an exception that if the impeachment process results in conviction, then
gotcha. And it didn't. And it didn't. Well, he wasn't impeached. Well, yes, he was.
He was
impeached,
he was
but
impeached.
Not convicted. He was impeached. Yeah.
Twice. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but the Justice Department would argue, and other scholars would say, no, you can't have a fella or a president have immunity from acting criminally, president or not. Is that what they would say?
Right. So the Department of Justice argued, obviously, that due process doesn't require impeachment and conviction first, but overall, they said that that there can't be absolute immunity. There should be what's called qualified immunity. And we already understand that in our jurisprudence, like, for example, police officers. they have qualified immunity in the scope of their job. But if they use excessive force, if they have otherwise criminal conduct that's not related at all to their job, like let's say, for example, an off-duty cop gets a DUI, they're drinking and driving, of course they can still be prosecuted, right? So the question then is, and so for the Department of Justice, they're saying, what is actually the scope of presidential duties? Did President Trump's actions fall within that? And then also, even if they did, then should a president just be immune for anything? And one of the judges asked President Trump's lawyers, okay, let's say hypothetically that a president orders SEAL Team 6 to go and assassinate their political rival. That's a president issuing an order to the military is a presidential action, but that certainly wouldn't be within the scope of their normal duties, and that would be a criminal activity. Is that still covered? So it really just depends now on where the lines are drawn and what the limiting principle is. And obviously the DOJ is wanting to say, yes, he can be prosecuted, and Trump's team is trying to say, no, he can't.
And the whole idea behind the constitutional protection for presidential immunity, Jenna, and you can maybe explain this, I'm sure you can explain this more clearly than I can, was to prevent the politically motivated prosecution of a president who is doing his duties, but his political opponents don't like him or don't like his policies. So the way we're going to get even is we're going to criminally charge. I mean, what was the thinking originally on the part of the founders, as far as you can tell?
Right. And this is where the Trump lawyers raised Federalist 47 from Madison, which actually talks about the separation of powers, and basically asserted rightly that some form of immunity should exist for the executive branch, for the president, just like the legislative branch, because you don't want the political targeting of lawmakers or of the executive or even judges just on the basis of politics. And so we already have that standard for lawmakers. They can't be civilly or criminally prosecuted just because you don't like how they voted on a piece of legislation. They have immunity within their lawmaking capacity, but because no former president before Trump has ever been indicted, the courts have never addressed whether that protection extends to criminal prosecution, and that's why this is such a novel and important issue.
So you pulled out the Federalist 47 Madison card right there. I noticed, Jenna.
I did.
That is the Federalist Papers you're talking about?
Yes, and for people who maybe have heard of the Federalist Papers, haven't read them, basically this is the legislative history that the Federalists, as opposed to the Anti-Federalists, those who promoted the ratification of the U.S. Constitution in 1787, their argument for why the U.S. Constitution is the best form of the supreme law of the land. Of course, we were transitioning from the Articles of Confederation at that time, which were too loose and didn't give sufficient power to the federal government, but they still wanted to ensure state sovereignty. And so those three, and they were lawyers, John Jay, our first U.S. Supreme Court Justice, James Madison, and Alexander Hamilton are the authors of those 85 articles and essays that are basically the legislative history that we can now go back to. And if there is a question about the text of the Constitution or why did this amendment or this clause become ratified, the Federalist Papers gave some insight as to why the founders promoted the ratification of the Constitution in its original context. Gotcha.
Well, Jenna, I am so thankful people like you want to be lawyers and want to do deep dive into the Constitution. We need people like the Alliance Defending Freedom and what Jenna's talking about, a originalist interpretation of the Constitution. All those things are very important. And it's why I can go with you about 10, 15 minutes on this, Jenna, and then I want to know what's for lunch. Okay? That's what my mind starts drifting. You know what I'm saying? But hey, listen, Jenna, thank you very much for being on. Go ahead.
Thanks. And I was just going to say, it's so funny because when a lot of parents will ask me, that they say, oh, well, my son or daughter just loves to argue, so they should become a lawyer. And I always tell them, that's not really the basis of lawyering, because I actually hate to argue. I'm fascinated by the philosophy of law and how it works in our civil society, how we promote a moral and upright society, and the philosophy of law and all of these questions, about presidential immunity or about the 14th Amendment or any of this history. To be a lawyer, you really do need to be fascinated with this. And I know some people are fascinated by, science, by other things. And I'm so thankful that God made us with very different interests and talents. And so for anybody who's considering being a lawyer, I love it. But I know that some people like Tim, just want to go and have lunch. And that's also great. That's a worthy goal in life.
I did say I can go about 15 minutes.
The regional manager, right?
I didn't like
a nice office
at all.
reference to the office.
I reached my saturation point.
Had to get that one in there for Brent.
All right,
I'm assistant regional manager, by the way, not assistant to the regional manager.
Okay, but there's no promotion though involved in any like salary difference, right?
That's right.
Okay.
All right, Jenna, thank you. That's Jenna Ellis joining us from her car in a parking lot somewhere there. Anyway, all right.
Jenna's
so
awesome. Jenna's awesome. We're blessed to have a mind like that on first thing in the morning.
You're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio, but it does network. It does take a special person. All kind of professions take people with special interest and attention spans on given subjects.
That's right.
And if you're going to be a lawyer, you better be ready to read and read and study and read and read and read some more.
Yeah.
And all right, then you better not be wrong, because if you're wrong, somebody goes to jail.
It's what's funny. You're talking about 10 or 15 minutes, and you want to know what's for lunch.
Right.
I have an article pulled up for the Associated Press about this immunity question, and I've got the first 3 paragraphs, and then there was an ad off to the side of someone making grilled cheese. I'm not
so
kidding.
your eyes went there?
I'm not kidding. I started looking at it and going, wow, that's a really nicely done grilled cheese. Perfectly toasted on the side. I'm just looking at it now. The cheese is melted. So that just shows you how short my attention span can be.
Yeah. All right, I'm looking at you 3 of you guys on the camera here. And I'm going to tell you, I'm just okay. Ed can go at length about the Boston Bruins hockey team.
Right.
Okay? Wesley can go
hunting.
Yes, but youth baseball.
Yes,
whole
true.
different level.
Yep. Wesley will be talking to you for 2 hours.
That's right.
Okay. 2 hours. He can go on that subject, right?
Right. And all categories, from coaching to practice to player development on and off the field. I mean,
we can break that down.
Yeah.
And let me just give.
I got to go. Hold on. I got to go.
Okay.
Fred.
Got a point.
Go ahead, Fred.
I'm looking at Fred. I'm trying to. Where's Fred's? Where can Fred go on and on and on about? I don't know. I don't know, Fred. What's your?
Let's get to know Fred a little bit today.
Yeah, Fred. Let's get to know you a little bit. What's your passion?
I love talking about Bible prophecy.
Yes,
that's right.
True.
Yes.
You knew that. You knew that, Dad. You just you blanked. Yeah.
You're right. Fred can go a couple hours on Bible prophecy, and good at it too.
And
by the way.
You'd probably teach it.
Yep.
Yeah. And what were you going to say?
Where Canada fits in.
Yes. No, I was going to say, we were talking about how like we're all different. And Wesley, I mentioned hunting, and then when you said baseball, I said, baseball first. But I actually went on a trip with Wesley, a speaking trip, and we were flying.
Oh, boy.
And I was sitting next to Wesley, and you know how before the people are getting on, so he had his computer up, and he was checking. Yeah. He has cameras out in the woods
hunting.
Yeah, and he was
the hunting.
Yeah. And he was showing me. He was showing me these pictures, and I was sitting there going, about the first 30 seconds, I was like, okay, you got pictures out in the woods. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he kept going on and on and on and showed me the trail cam photo of this and that.
Day
and
and the time and the
I didn't want to say it, but I part of me wanted to say,
cared.
Wesley, after that first 30 seconds, man, I want to know what's for lunch.
That's
out of
it.
that thing.
Grilled cheese.
All right. You're listening to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. You want to send us an email as long as it's positive and encouraging. We want K-Love emails. So send them to comments@afr.net, comments@afr.net. Fred, what's President, let's see, I was going to mention Governor Ron DeSantis. He made an appearance on Fox News last night. The night before that, it was Nikki Haley,
right,
former governor of South Carolina. They're both Republican candidates trying to challenge the former president, Donald Trump, who will be on TV tonight on Fox News, right?
That is correct. They're in Iowa, leading up to the voting next, the caucuses coming up on Monday night. So we're about 5 days out from there. So last night it was the turn for Governor DeSantis. Had a number of interesting points to make. One of them being that he says if Trump is the nominee in this upcoming election, the election will become all about Donald Trump and not a referendum on Joe Biden. Cut 12.
What do we want the 2024 election to be about? Because, if Donald Trump is the nominee, the election is going to be about legal issues, criminal trials, January 6th. It'll be a referendum on him. It'll be a referendum on a lot of these issues that are not going to put us in a position to hold Biden accountable. Biden will be in the basement, and it may not even be Biden. They may sub him out for someone else. I mean, we know that that's a possibility. Either way, it lets the Democrats off the hook. I think this election needs to be a referendum on their failed policies, and we need to offer a positive vision to turn this country around, and that's what I represent.
Yeah, and to his point, you look at what the President Joe Biden has done over the last couple of days. He had that speech he had last week. He made it all about Donald Trump, and another speech earlier this week about Trump and MAGA Republicans and white supremacy. So to the governor's point, Biden is proving it.
What he's saying is true. Whether it matters or not to Republican voters or not, we're about to find out.
Yes.
But I do think what he's saying is true. I think we all know that, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You're gonna, if Trump is the nominee, if the Republican voters choose him, it's going to be January 6 clips on a loop.
Yep.
It's going to be all his court cases, which many people think, well, they're unfair anyway. That is the court cases against the former president. But it is going to be all that drama, and I think that's what Governor DeSantis is saying, that he's not going to have that. And that's going to be a distraction, he's saying. Whether that plays with enough Republican voters or not, we will soon find out. What else did he say?
Well, he had a number of comments. He also talked about that if he is elected president, that he is going to open the doors again to oil and gas exploration. Cut number 2.
We are going to frack in this country. It's important, and it's the way you get to be energy independent and energy dominant. I rolled out a great energy program. I want to lower people's gas prices. I want to lower people's energy costs. That'll help with inflation. That'll reduce prices because that goes into everything we do. And then you talk about national security. You talk about China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela. A dominant American energy is one of the best national security tools that we do. In Florida, we have moratoriums off our beaches. That's in the Constitution. I supported that as governor to faithfully execute the law. But you cannot get the energy you need unless you do fracking. So we're going to do it in the Marcellus. We're going to do it in the Permian. We're going to do it in Bakken, all around. I want to choose Midland over Moscow. I want to choose the Marcellus over the mullahs, and I want to choose Bakken over Beijing. So Americans can rest assured we are going to be the dominant energy producer in this world, and you're going to pay less for energy and for gas.
Okay, let's.
What? Hey, I did want to play, so you're talking about energy there. And again, we did play some clips from Nikki Haley yesterday. We'll play some from the former President Trump tomorrow because he appears tonight with Brett Baer and Martha McCallum. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so one interesting thing, I don't know, I hope we'll have time to cover this. Ed, you were saying that you liked what Governor DeSantis said about the FBI last night.
Yeah,
right?
he, and we tried to get some of the sound from this, but it didn't. The quality of the sound, I don't think, was probably up to radio standards. But here's my personal opinion, I don't have any insider information from people inside the FBI. I look at the top of the FBI, the leadership, a lot of the political appointees. I think that is totally corrupt, okay? Because I think the FBI and the Department of Justice have been so clearly politicized that I have lost faith in much of the leadership of the FBI. I believe that probably the majority, this is just my sense, the majority of the rank and file FBI agents probably are all, still dedicated to their profession. But there are going to be some who have fallen in line with the political nature, the politicized nature of the FBI. And I like what DeSantis said. He said, if I'm president and I find that FBI agents went along with tracking parents who showed up at school board meetings, those FBI agents are going to be fired. If I find out that FBI agents went along with targeting of traditional Catholics and considered them to be as dangerous as terrorists, those FBI agents are going to be fired. So I like the idea of finding out which FBI agents went along with this politicization of the Department of Justice and the FBI, and having consequences for those agents. In essence, cleaning house. So I like that.
Also, Governor DeSantis has said he will move the FBI out of Washington D.C. It's been right.
Right.
Wesley, do you want to say something about the headquarters?
Yes, he did say that. And the one thing that I was going to add here is that as you heard from the clip and some of the comments that Ed shared with us that Ron DeSantis said, you're going to just find very few comments and positions that he holds that I disagree with personally. I can't think of one offhand. Obviously his track record and what he's done there in Florida is just a roadmap for any conservative as they move forward. And so, obviously we would like, I would like to see him, his numbers higher, but there's still hope out there with the Iowa caucus being next Monday.
Yeah, for Ron
DeSantis. But he has just done such a good job at doing a lot of the things, even going a little further than former President Trump did in a lot of areas.
Well, he's more conservative than President Trump.
That's right.
On several issues. But now, President Trump had a good track record while he was president and was, a lot conservative.
I was going to compliment DeSantis a little further by saying that his convictions go a lot deeper, but also to his the way to articulate them goes
good point.
Really well too.
Yeah, I don't know. President Trump's. I give you an example. The 6 week heartbeat bills.
Yep.
Right.
That's right.
President Trump said those are terrible. That's terrible. I'm just quoting you what he said. Am I wrong, guys?
That's what he said. He was, and we all know this, that he did that as a result because he didn't like Ron DeSantis getting praises from support that were otherwise his support.
Ron DeSantis signed a 6 week health heartbeat bill in Florida, and he said, "I'm proud to sign it." And then President Trump said it's terrible.
Everything. I think DeSantis for
President Trump is talking. I think I don't know. He would have to articulate himself. He may be talking politically.
Sure.
Politically.
I think that's what he was saying. I think he was saying politically was a bad idea.
But if you're pro-life, you should never say that
no context.
Protecting a baby up to after the heartbeat is terrible. You should not say that.
Sure.
Okay. You should not say that. But anyway, all right, we're going to take a short time out right here. We got the Fred. When is the Republican caucus in Iowa next week?
Coming up next Monday night.
Next Monday.
Yep.
It's going to be absolutely frigid there.
Yes, it is.
So,
but they're hardy folks.
That's right.
Yeah. We'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
There's a lot happening around us. That's why Christians need to stand strong on family values and morality. Hi, I'm Ray Rooney, editor of The Stand, a blog from the American Family Association. The Stand has timely, carefully written articles on relevant cultural issues that you can quickly forward to others. Visit afa.net/The Stand.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Hunter Biden crashes the House hearing on a resolution to hold him in contempt, but suddenly bolted when faced with having to answer a question from a Republican. Biden showed up in person, unannounced, at a House committee hearing today to consider a resolution to hold him in contempt of Congress for defying a subpoena demanding his closed-door testimony. But he and his entourage suddenly ran from the room when Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene was recognized to speak.
Whoa! Oh, I like to reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman.
Burst their bubble.
Wow, that's too bad. I think it's clear and obvious for everyone watching this hearing today that Hunter Biden is terrified of strong conservative Republican women because he can't even face my words as I was about to speak to him. What a coward.
Meanwhile, Fox's Hillary Vaughn caught up with Hunter Biden in the hallway to ask him this.
Mr. Biden, why did you put your dad on speakerphone with your business partners if he had no involvement in your business?
Do you have a dad? Did he call you?
Yes.
Answer the phone?
Yes.
Okay.
But why did you need to talk to him during business meetings if he had nothing to do with your business?
Well, you're dangerous. You're very dangerous.
Former U.S. Attorney Andrew McCarthy reacts to that.
Yeah, I think that's why they want to get him in the deposition chair, because they think that, even though it's in his interest to not answer questions, and even though Abby Lowell will be there trying to tie him up and gag him and keep him quiet, the impulse is always to be too smart or too clever by half and answer questions. Look, prosecutors bank on that. I would have had a very short career if we didn't have witnesses like that.
Impeachment hearings are underway for another top Biden administration official. Ryan Smells has the latest.
House Republicans making the case that Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas has allowed the migrant crisis to get out of hand while pushing back on arguments made by Democrats that a broken immigration system and turmoil in other countries are to blame.
All of these excuses have long predated Secretary Mayorkas' tenure, and yet we've never experienced a crisis like this.
Republicans invited attorneys general from 3 non-border states to testify as a way to show how wide-reaching the crisis is. Mayorkas has been asking for additional resources from Congress and immigration reform. On Capitol Hill, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
You've heard about them, but how do the Iowa caucuses work? Chris Woodward has more.
One of the main differences between caucuses and primaries is the amount of time allotted for voting to occur and the methods by which people can vote. In a primary, people can show up at the polls and cast ballots throughout Election Day, from the early morning until polls close in the evening. They also have the option of casting an absentee ballot if they cannot make it to the polls on Election Day, and in some states, people may vote before Election Day. The Iowa caucuses, on the other hand, are held in the evening, and voters must attend in person so as to participate, except in a few isolated instances. Caucuses are also run by political parties, whereas primaries are usually but not always run by the state. Iowa Talk Radio personality Jeff Stein.
So essentially, caucuses in the state of Iowa are party-building events. They are designed so that the state party, right down to the local level, can get volunteers, can get people interested, potentially recruit legislative and county office candidates. It's almost by the way they're doing a presidential preference, but that has become what the world has looked at as the most important function. But each party wants a big turnout. Yes, the presidential attention is nice, but they need it for party building as they move toward an important election in November.
I'm Chris Woodward.
Wall Street is drifting today ahead of a report that could bolster or dash the hopes that sent stocks surging into the end of last year. American Family News is available online at afn.net. and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
Progressive elites in Hollywood, big tech, mainstream media, and higher academia are lying to our next generation. They want to convince our young people that America's biblical foundation is offensive, outdated, and must be overthrown. Your gift today will unleash AFA action to share the timeless truth of why protecting the biblical family is essential to the survival of the American Republic. You'll also get the free DVD and booklet set, Progressive Threat to the American Republic. Visit afaaction.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildman, President of the American Family Association.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. We're a live current events program, issue-oriented here Monday through Friday, I think, and Monday through Thursday is Hard News. Friday is Learning University, so join us for that on Friday. Tim, Ed, Wesley, and we've already been introduced 17 times this show, so now we have Steve Paisley Jordahl.
Good morning and afternoon, everybody.
Good morning and afternoon for those listening on the East Coast or internationally who've already passed the...
Good evening in Russia.
Good morning.
Good evening. Good evening.
Do you know somebody in Russia? Do you know Russian?
I do not know Russian.
What were you doing right there?
Oh, I was speaking English with a Russian accent. I did know a couple when I was in Colorado. I had some friends who adopted some Russian orphans, and by this time they were like teenage girls, and so we'd like occasionally get together on New Year's Eve and play bunco and that kind of stuff. And they were at the table and they said something in a Russian accent, but it was English, and they don't have a Russian accent normally, but they said it there. I said, "Is that Russian?" Because I didn't know all this time. I can really speak Russian, can I?
So they said Mudgorning.
That's
something
right,
like
something
that.
like that. I don't know. They were joking around because they've been in.
Probably the best way to learn Russian is just watch old James Bond movies.
There you go.
That may be the best way to learn that language. Hey, listen, just real quickly, we were talking about the fact that Nikki Haley was on last night, Fox News, Town Hall. Ron DeSantis was on last night, and Donald Trump will be on tonight. Fox News doing a back-to-back-to-back with the candidates vying for the Iowa caucus, the Republican Party. Anyway, we have a clip. It's 26 seconds long, and we were talking about what Governor DeSantis had said about the FBI and the trust in the FBI. And anyway, play that clip.
On day one, you'll have a new director of the FBI. You're going to have new people in the Department of Justice. I'm going to take parts of those agencies. I'm going to move them out of D.C. So if an FBI agent is going after parents going to school board meeting, I'm firing those people. If the FBI is colluding with big tech to censor dissent in this country, I'm firing those people. If the FBI is passing around memos saying observant Catholics are potential terrorists, I'm firing those people. So there's going to be a reckoning.
The sound there was that's what I pulled the sound this morning, and that's the only clip I could find in the time allotted.
It's all right.
Somewhere. But
I think we get the point.
Yeah.
Well, Ron DeSantis was speaking from the car where Jenna Ellis was in the parking lot, so that's why they sounded
That was
similar.
a good one, Ed.
It sounded kind of
That was a good one, Ed.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is here that I don't see anywhere in the Constitution or where federal agencies have to necessarily, Ed, be located in Washington, D.C. Why can't they be, like Governor DeSantis is talking about, he'll move the FBI out of Washington, D.C.?
Well, and I've heard President Trump say the same thing, that I think the frustration in terms of moving departments out, the Department of Interior, we're going to move that to Wyoming or something. I don't know.
Trump's not moving the FBI, though.
No, in fact, he said, as somebody pointed out in the first hour, that he's wanting to build a new palatial place in Washington, D.C. The frustration is with the power being aggregated in D.C. So you have the federal government growing bigger and bigger with more and more authority, usurping authority and power. And the hope is that if you break that up, in other words, you don't have all that concentrated power in D.C., maybe that will undermine this authority grab. I'm not sure it'll work, but
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
with moving it out. I think physically dispersing the federal government would be a good thing.
Absolutely.
Because what happens is you get this, as you're saying, you get this growing bureaucracy in Washington, D.C., and it's part of what's described as the deep state, because a lot of these people, they all think alike, and most of them are liberal Democrats.
And they all interact on a daily basis.
Yes,
and reinforce.
And they're the ones who control. Yes, and they're the ones who control these agencies.
And they hire people within their camp too.
Yeah,
yeah, and they live there for 10, 20, 30, 40 years.
Right.
So I think it'd be a great idea to take some of these agencies, like Governor DeSantis is talking about, with the FBI, and moving them out to. He said, move them. I don't know where all he said move them, but you can move them anywhere in the U.S.
You could move the Department of Transportation to Michigan somewhere, and plus it would be a boon economically for the states. It would no doubt change the politics of Virginia, because now you've got a lot of these people who work in D.C. They're all liberals, and they all occupy Northern Virginia. Might change some of the politics in Maryland. I mean, to me, it's at least a good first step.
I did find President Trump's response to this idea odd, given his contentious relationship with the FBI. President Trump said, quote, on his Truth Social about a week or 2 weeks ago, he said, the FBI headquarters, I'm quoting President Trump right here, the FBI headquarters should not be moved to a faraway location, but should stay right where it is, in a new, spectacular building, in the best location in our now crime-ridden and filthy, dirty, graffiti-scarred capital, end of quote there. So I don't know why President Trump's in favor of building the FBI's, quote, spectacular new building in D.C. when at the same time they're the ones he says are going after him. So
keep your enemies close, your friends close, your enemies closer.
Yes,
I guess.
I've seen that.
Steve Bannon, who rarely criticizes President Trump, did on that one. He said, "No way." Should we be rewarding the FBI with a spectacular new building? Anyway, go ahead, Steve. What do you got for us?
All right. TEI, Today's Issues, presents headlines you really don't want to ever hear.
Okay.
The New York Times has an article out that says the end of the all-male, all-white cockpit. Airlines are struggling to find enough pilots to diversify a profession that has been resilient to change. I never want to see a headline that says airlines are struggling to find pilots if I have to fly.
Well, listen, I have not read that article. I don't have a problem with women flying planes, or I certainly don't have a problem with, having a diverse, a community of pilots, as long as they are qualified to fly a plane.
Right.
But I don't want someone being in the cockpit just because they're a woman. If they don't
they're not going to be. And Wesley can comment on this too. But the reason I'm saying it is these airlines are not going to hire people that aren't competent and to do their job, and aren't well qualified to do their job, because you can't put a person in a cockpit who's marginal. And just because they're a right color or right gender or they have a right pronoun, because you have one accident, crash, and that's what it comes out that the pilots were
diversity hires.
Were diversity hires. It's the end of that airline.
What airline was that?
This was the New York Times article is about the industry.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the reason
again, what are they saying? What's the article? What's the point of the article? So go ahead, Wesley. After Steve.
The sub-headline is airlines are struggling to find enough pilots to diversify a profession that has been resistant to change. I agree with you about they need to be, if there's enough qualified people of any color, it doesn't matter. And if you have two equal people and you want to hire a person of color to diversify, fine. But the fact that they're saying they're having trouble finding these people, that scares me a little bit, but.
Well, and Dad, I would hesitate to say that they wouldn't do that because we've done that in law enforcement. We've done that in the military. We've done that everywhere else. Now, to your point, I think one lawsuit would be the end of that particular airline if that was the case that came out. But college campuses have done that.
You can do that where it's basically inconsequential or hard to measure. You have an airplane go down and you learn that you got a person in there just because they're a minority of some kind, but they were 51st in a class of 55.
That's right.
But that's not. Excuse the pun. That's not going to fly.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, in the real world, it's the same reason the NBA doesn't have white guys
Or short guys.
or as many.
Well, they have
a few white guys.
Let me just say this: the NBA has a few white players. Why is that, Tim? Because the black players are better, Tim. Right. And they can prove it on the floor, right?
Right.
Okay. And I don't know why that is exactly, but that's just a fact. Okay. So you pay the professional athletes based on what they can do. In baseball, it's a lot of Hispanics.
Right.
They're better at baseball than whites or blacks. In a percentage way of looking at it. So in those professional sports, you just look at what happens. You look at the results, and you say, well, this player is better than that player. I don't care what color he is, or isn't. Okay, and so that's what people want to see, and they want to see excellence, whatever the endeavor is. So if you have pilots, and most of them are white guys who came out of the Air Force, what does it matter? Who cares? As long as they're competent and they can do the job. And if they score better than people of other colors and people of other identities, so be it. Who cares? That's just the way it is. And so I think this whole diversity thing is overstated and overrated. And you need to hire people. Listen, when you go to the doctor, any profession, but especially you go to the doctor and you have something seriously wrong with you, do you say, you know what, I hope I get a diversity student here to be looking at my liver?
Right.
No, you don't. You don't care. You go, I want the best. I want somebody who knows what they're doing. I don't care if they're a male or female or if they are black or white or green. I don't care.
Right.
You just want the best at that profession. So a
Well,
lot of the diversity stuff that's being promoted only works in places that it's hard to measure. Okay, it's hard to measure. Go ahead, Steve. What were you going to say?
And regardless of how far they go down this route, because apparently they're going to attempt it because every other area of America has either attempted it or done it. So regardless how far they get in it, we have evidence throughout the last 20 or 30 years that backfires. And it doesn't.
What backfires?
What backfires is hiring people based on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Look no further than
and certainly don't want to put them in the cockpit of a jet.
Oh yeah, over their abilities.
Look no further than Joe Biden's cabinet.
I'm like Steve. If two people are equal at a particular job, and a company wants to say, hey, we need more people of different backgrounds or different, that would be a good thing for our company. Okay, that's great. Yeah. But I'm talking about you don't put somebody in a position above somebody who's more qualified just because of their gender or their ethnicity.
Correct.
What I'm saying.
And let me just toss in a little something here and then go back to you, Steve. I'm just telling you, when I order a pizza, okay, I'm just bringing it to what's important to me.
Yeah.
I want a good tasting pizza. I don't care who makes it. You see what I'm saying,
I
guys?
see what you're saying.
You guys see what I'm saying?
I do. And I smell, I taste what you're saying.
That's right. On the other hand, I don't care if the local pizza parlor, wants to do this DEI thing. But if they put a pizza out by one of their diversity hires that doesn't taste good, if it's not the right kind of marinara sauce, I'm not coming back.
Nope.
There you go.
All right.
The reason I brought up that story was because the airlines are having a little bit of a tough time other places these days. Alaska Airlines and United did some inspections after an Alaska airline flight was flying in midair. The door fell out.
Right.
It just fell off the plane, and they were, as the Babylon Bee said, they have new extended view seats now.
Oh man!
But nobody was hurt.
They were at like 20,000 feet or something like.
They were, but it doesn't stop there. They did some inspections, and they found other jets where this particular bolt that holds the door on was loose. They grounded all of these 737 MAX 9 planes so they can get the screwdrivers and the wrenches out and tighten the bolts.
So somebody's out of a job.
I would think that somebody's going to get a talking to.
Depending if it's a union job. Sometimes it's hard to fire.
Or if it's a DEI hire.
Yes, that's right. So
duly noted. You know, can you imagine being in a jet? I don't know what. I think they were 20,000 feet up in the air, and a window blows out. It was a window panel, right?
It's a door. It was one of the emergency exits.
Oh, it was the whole door.
It was
door plug, yeah.
Quote, a plug door, end quote.
And a
that's not
teenager had his shirt ripped off. Did you guys hear that?
Did you see pictures of this?
I'm looking at pictures of it when it's on the ground as they're investigating. Okay. It's a door-sized hole.
Well, there's the door. Well, I say there's the listeners can see it.
But I want to know where that door landed.
I'm watching
right.
I'm looking at a picture of the door.
Well, that was Alaska Airlines.
Yeah. And the Babylon Bee headline is Alaska Airlines adds new scenic view seat for $30 upgrade fee.
Nobody was hurt.
Nobody
got sucked out of the plane.
Portland, Oregon is where the door landed.
Took off from Portland, Oregon, and that door went somewhere. It's got to be. It obviously didn't land on someone's roof because we would have heard about that. But
do you know that they have found 2 cell phones that fell to the ground from that height that were sucked out of the airplane, still working?
Yes.
Now that's the cell phone company that whoever made that cell phone needs to use that as their advertisement.
No kidding.
That's right.
Huh?
If your phone ever gets sucked out of an Alaska Airlines plane, you can
Rest
find
assured.
it'll still be working.
If it lands on the ground, it's going to be working. You can find it with Find Your Phone.
There you go. And find my right. That's right. It'll ping.
Well, I just took my rule of if it's closer than an 8-hour drive, I'm going to drive. If it's further than 8 hours, I fly.
Yeah.
I just shrunk that. If I can drive at all,
yes,
I'm going to drive.
So just one more reason for you, Wesley, not to fly.
That's right. There you go.
Yeah, but if it's a 10-hour flight, you're willing to risk being sucked out of the airplane.
That's right.
Right?
No. I'm expanding it. It's going to have to be more than 10 now. I went from 8 to 10.
Oh, more than 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm driving if it's 10 now.
All right. I think that was a new plane, and so they got to fix that, obviously.
Yeah.
I just thought if you're an Alaskan Airlines competitor airline, you just offer flights where you guarantee you won't be sucked out of.
Yeah, you just say our planes
right
will land just the way they took off with all parts.
I would use that as
That might be a good idea.
All right, next story, Steve.
All right, tell me if you think this is a good idea. The state of Florida is considering a law, HB1, which means it's top priority for their legislature, the way they do those things, to restrict access to social media platforms for anyone under age 16. Good idea?
When you say restrict, what does it say?
They need age verification. They will not give any access to people under 16, and they will purge all accounts of minors under 16 that exist. So basically,
I don't know. That's proposed legislation.
It is
for Florida, which I don't know when they go into session. I think they go into session pretty soon. I don't know. We'll have to see how that works. I don't know how that works exactly. Go ahead, Ed.
I was going to say I generally lean against the government expanding its reach into people's lives. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not sure how I feel about this. I need to read some more. I do like the idea of forcing social media companies to purge all the information they're gathering on people under 16 and not allowing them to collect information on someone under 16. I'm not sure it's the government's job. I really think it's parents' job to monitor the social media.
Yeah.
Now, maybe parents just feel overmatched and unable to figure out what their kids are doing. I don't know. That's one of those things where I'm just going to have to see what the arguments are. What do you, Wesley? You got young kids.
What's the question?
All right. So Florida's law about
it's not a law.
Well, it's proposed
the bill.
Proposed bill to restrict the access to social media of those 16 and under. So you would not be able to access social media at all if you're
16 or under.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's hard for the reasons you just mentioned. To your point, I think when it comes to things like that, that should be the parents' discretion, and the parents would obviously, be able to monitor things like that. Now, if things that are on there are pornographic, obviously that should be
right.
Or if there's anything in there that meets a certain level of violent, whether that's rated R or X or whatever, those types of things, obviously, I think those should be removed from the ability of the person 16 and under to be able to access. But as far as just social media in general, I believe that should be left up to the parents, just like them use of a cell phone, the use of the internet or whatever. The parents should be able to monitor that. The more that we put in, at first on its face, I'm like, my first reaction is, well, that's good because they're 16 under. But on the other hand, the more room that we give for the government, the less responsibility the parents will own over time. And that's the reason we've seen a lack in responsibility for the breakdown of the family has left a huge role, has left a huge gap in parents delegating their personal responsibilities of raising their children to the government, to education, to other things. We don't need them to do so in this area either. That's my opinion on that. Since you asked.
I did.
Yeah. All right, Dad, what do you think about that, huh? That was a good answer.
I agree with you, fellers.
Hey, fellers.
Yeah.
All right, Steve.
All right.
Next story, Steve.
Let's end here. I saw this. This is trending on my my Twitter feed, and I thought it was interesting. What phrase makes your eyes roll the minute you hear it?
Oh, shouldn't answer that out loud.
What?
I'll tell you what does for me.
Yeah.
When I hear somebody say at the end of the day 17 times.
Right. There you go.
In about a 5-minute conversation, they'll say, but you know what? I have something that I say all the time that I don't even recognize.
I'm missing
annoys people, I'm sure.
Oh, huh?
At the end of the day.
Huh?
Oh, that's it?
Is that what I say?
No, I just didn't understand.
You do the huh thing a lot. Listen, like you said, we all have something. My son, he'll say right. He'll be speaking on it right.
Yeah.
I've got stuff, but Steve, you asked that question for a reason.
Yes,
well, no, I just here's some examples that they gave. I have one, but some examples that they gave are my pronouns are.
Oh yeah,
eyes will roll.
Yeah.
Democracy is at stake.
Yeah.
The science is settled. Mine is pay their fair share. When I hear that, my eyes roll immediately. I know what's coming on.
What about follow the science?
Follow the science would be another one. That'd be a good one. Follow your heart is one that they.
Follow your heart.
Follow your.
That's it.
Or fur baby. Someone said their eyes roll when they hear.
Follow
fur
your
baby.
truth.
Did you give one of the things that you don't like?
My mind's going in a different direction now because these are more of the in the realm of politics.
Yeah,
some of them.
Yeah, some of them.
Well, listen, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Is that really yours, Dad? I didn't know that.
No,
I think we all.
Do you say that at the end of the day?
No, he didn't like.
I don't say
he didn't like hearing that.
But,
yeah.
I'm just saying I've talked to people and they'll have a conversation for.
Okay,
about
I've got
10
one
minutes.
before the show ends.
What?
How about this one? Our ice cream machine is broken.
Oh, that's it. That's mine.
And
that's
and
mine.
what company might that be, Ed?
Goodness gracious.
All right.
McDonald's.
All right,
I've
thanks
got my
for joining us.
stories
Thanks,
on those.
Steve, Ed, Wesley, and Fred Jackson for being on with us, and our producer, Brent Creeley. Also, let's see, Jenna Ellis was on with us. Listen, have a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. You know, folks, without George Washington, I wouldn't be